Her power terrified empires, but I made her tremble with just one wish. She controlled gravity. Until he touched her hand. Commander Val'Zura stood tall in the command deck of the Jirani dreadnought, her silver skin glowing faintly under the pulse of the ship's artificial starlight. Around her, officers moved in silent precision. One wave of her hand could crush bones, flip a shuttle, or press a soldier flat against the wall. She didn't speak unless necessary. She didn't touch, she didn't feel. Until the human arrived. The distress call from a damaged human rescue vessel had been routine. They were weak creatures, slow to evolve, always needing help. But Jirani protocol demanded assistance be offered in neutral zones, so she had agreed reluctantly to let their engineer board to assist with restoring their failing gravity core. He stepped into the chamber quietly, carrying only a black case and an expression far too relaxed for a man surrounded by warriors. His name was Elias Drake. His skin was pale compared to her people, his hair dark, and his scent gods. His scent had struck her like a blow to the chest. Her vision blurred slightly, her balance shifted, her throat felt dry, and her eyes dilated involuntarily around her. Diagnostic HUDs flickered, showing strange readings. Pheromone levels spiked, internal temperature rising, neurological fluctuation. Irregular. She blinked. No, impossible. No one made her react like this. But Elias just smiled at her, calm and completely unaffected. Nice ship, he said casually, looking around. Bit heavy on the gravity fields though. He moved past her and knelt near the damaged core. She watched him without blinking, her jaw tight. He didn't ask for instructions. He just opened his case and started working, fingers moving with slow confidence. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't nervous, and he didn't treat her like a goddess or a threat. He barely even looked at her, which, somehow, made her want to step closer. 10 minutes passed, then 20. She stood frozen at first, telling herself she was observing him professionally, but she could hear her heartbeat fast and unfamiliar. Jirani warriors were trained to shut off emotion, to never let chemical reactions cloud command decisions, but no amount of training had prepared her for whatever this was. Then came the accident. The ship gave a sudden jolt, minor but enough to knock over a nearby tool tray. Reflexively, Elias reached out to steady her. His hand closed around hers. In an instant, her knees weakened, her core flared with heat. Her body, always cool and composed, flushed with warmth. Her breath caught. Gravity flickered in the room, not from a malfunction, but from her. She'd lost control. Only for a moment, but everyone felt it. Tools floated, monitors tilted. Officers looked up in alarm, and Elias, he stared at her hand, still holding his. She pulled back like she'd touched fire. Her silver skin shimmered with a faint violet hue, Jirani signs of arousal. She turned away, hiding her face. "I apologize," she said, voice hoarse. Unexpected reaction. Elias didn't mock her. He didn't grin or tease. He just stood, slowly, dusted his hands, and said, "It's okay. You're not the only one feeling something strange." That sentence hit her harder than any battle that night. She sat alone in her private chambers, reading the biometric scans. All signs pointed to one truth. The human's biology was affecting hers. His body chemistry, his scent, his heat was triggering dormant pathways in her nervous system. Ones her species hadn't used in centuries. They had evolved beyond physical needs, beyond intimate desires. At least, that's what they've told themselves. But now she wasn't so sure. She replayed the moment in her mind, the warmth of his skin, the steadiness in his eyes, the lack of fear. No one had touched her in over 100 years. No one had dared. And yet this human did it like it was the most natural thing in the universe. She clenched her fists, trying to push the thoughts away. He was just a mechanic, a primitive species. But her body didn't seem to care about that. Neither did her dreams, which that night were filled with images she hadn't thought possible. His hands, his voice, his heat against her cold, controlled skin. The next day, she requested his presence again, and when he entered the chamber, that same smile on his face, her heart thudded once more. This time she didn't look away. Val'Zura didn't understand why she called him back. The repairs were complete. His ship was fully operational. There was no strategic reason for Elias Drake to still be aboard her dreadnought, and yet, there he was again, standing before her, arms folded, a curious smirk tugging at his mouth like he already knew she'd summon him. "What's broken this time?" he asked, voice smooth, low. "Besides your gravitational field, I mean." Her officers gasped softly behind her. That kind of language, casual, bordering on disrespectful, could have gotten most beings atomized on the spot. But Val'Zura's lips twitched, almost a smile, almost. "Your presence requires observation," she said flatly, trying to sound clinical. "Your biology is disrupting ship systems." Elias tilted his head. "You sure it's the ship I'm disrupting?" Her throat tightened. He was too good at this. She was used to fear, obedience, silence. He offered none of those, just that maddening confidence, as if he had no idea how powerful she was, or worse, as if he didn't care. Val'Zura turned, motioning him to follow. Her silver cape flowed behind her like liquid metal as she led him into a private quarters of space no outsider had ever entered. It was dimly lit, filled with soft pulsing lights and floating crystalline panels. A meditation chamber, a place of stillness. And now, it felt far too close. He stepped inside, eyes wide but respectful. Nice place, very moody, like you. She ignored the comment, though the corners of her mouth twitched again. She gestured to a curved diagnostic bench. Sit, I'll begin scans. Elias shrugged and dropped onto the bench. Just tell me if I need to take my shirt off. She froze. He said it as a joke, probably. But now her mind was conjuring images it had no business entertaining. Her gaze flicked to his chest, then quickly away. Jirani didn't experience lust the way humans did, or they weren't supposed to. But her core was warming, her pulse elevated, and worst of all, her control over the room's gravity was fluctuating again. The crystals on the walls trembled. She pretended to focus on the scanner, placing 2 fingers gently on his wrist. The contact sent a soft jolt through her system. His skin was warmer than hers. His heartbeat, steady and strong, echoed in her fingertips like a war drum. He looked up at her, his voice quiet now. Is this really about the readings? Val'Zura hesitated. The truth perched on the edge of her tongue like a hawk ready to dive. No, she said finally, her voice quieter than she intended. It's about you. He didn't gloat, he didn't push. He just nodded. I thought so. She stepped back, arms crossed, confused by the hurricane inside her chest. You're unlike anything I've encountered. Jirani, don't feel this, not from anyone, especially not humans. Elias stood slowly, stepping toward her until they were just a breath apart. Maybe you just haven't met the right one yet. Her eyes met his, silver on blue. Her power hummed under her skin, twitching, crackling, barely contained. She could lift him off the floor with a flick. But instead, she stood there, trembling slightly, not from weakness, but anticipation. Then he reached up, slow and tucked a strand of her silver hair behind her ear. Her breath caught. His touch was nothing like Jirani protocol. It wasn't dominance or control. It was curiosity, admiration, maybe even affection. Her voice was barely audible. You should leave. Do you want me to leave? The silence between them stretched, thick with tension. Finally, she answered no. In that moment, something ancient inside her cracked open, something buried beneath centuries of power, duty, and emotional isolation. She, who could bend gravity, was being pulled into his orbit, and for the first time in her life, she let it happen. Val'Zura didn't sleep that night. Not that the Jirani needed much sleep to begin with, at least, not in the human sense. But her mind wouldn't settle. Her body felt agitated. No. Stimulated every time she closed her eyes. She didn't see battle plans or star charts. She saw him, the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd touched her hair like it was something delicate, not the war-forged braid of a galactic warlord. And worst of all, her body wanted more. She stood in the privacy of her chamber, facing the tall mirror embedded in the wall. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, but there was a glow beneath the surface now, a soft lavender undertone pulsing just below her collarbone. It was the biological signal of receptivity. Jirani hadn't seen that color in over 1,000 years. With a command to the mirror, she brought up the full bioscan she'd secretly ordered after Elisa's second visit. His physiology was primitive in many ways, single heart, no neural lattice, limited self-repair, and yet reproductive data blinked on the screen, organ dimensions, temperature variances, endurance profiles. She narrowed her eyes. Statistical anomaly, she whispered. Humans shouldn't be this compatible. But the numbers were undeniable. His biology wasn't just triggering her systems, it was activating ancient Jirani reproductive pathways. Long dormant chemical messengers were being released. Her skin was producing contact pheromones. Her reproductive matrix was preparing. The ship's AI chirped a warning. Emotional convergence, unsafe neural load detected. Physical response suggests early bonding phase initiation. She dismissed the alert with a flick of her hand. Too late, she thought. The next morning she called him again. No excuses this time. No technical pretense. Elias arrived freshly showered, dressed in a fitted gray shirt that did nothing to hide the outline of his chest beneath. He had that same look again, half smug, half curious, fully infuriating. You didn't even pretend to have a reason this time, he said, stepping into her chamber. I'm done pretending, she replied. He blinked, surprised, maybe even impressed. She crossed the room slowly, her movements graceful, predatory. Her silver heels made no sound against the obsidian floor. She stopped just short of touching him. You affect me, Elias Drake. I don't know why, but I intend to understand it. Elias's voice dropped. You're sure that's all you want? There was a heat in the space between them, a magnetic pull, one that had nothing to do with gravity tech. I should crush you, she whispered, half to herself, snap you like air between my fingers. He took a step closer, bold, reckless, beautiful. But you won't, he said, because you don't want to. His hand rose slowly again, giving her time to stop him. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek, trailing across her jaw. Her knees nearly buckled. She gritted her teeth. Do you understand what's happening to me? To my species, we don't do this. We don't bond. We dance single quotes T.feel. Maybe you've been evolving the wrong direction, he said. Maybe feeling is the next step. She let out a shaky breath. Then, without another word, she reached forward and took his hand. Not a diplomatic shake, not a command grip, just her fingers wrapping around his, warm and slow. And in that moment, every system in her body, every defense, every firewall, every Jirani barrier went offline. The ship trembled. Somewhere deep, in its core, the gravity stabilizers spiked, then settled. The AI sent another quiet warning to her neural interface, uncontrolled bonding response escalating. Recommended action, complete or terminate. She closed her eyes. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. Just once. Soft, curious, terrifying. When she pulled back, Elias was breathing harder. But he didn't speak, he didn't move. He just looked at her like she wasn't a commander, or a threat, or a strange alien queen. He looked at her like she was his, and she realized that's exactly what she wanted to be. They didn't speak for several minutes after the kiss. Not because of awkwardness, there was none. Not because of fear. Val'Zura didn't fear anything. It was because something fundamental had changed. The air around them had shifted, thickened. If her soldiers had walked in at that moment, the gravity would have flattened them. Elias stood there, lips parted slightly, breathing just a bit heavier, but his eyes, steady, focused. He wasn't confused, he wasn't second-guessing. He knew exactly what had happened. So did she. Val'Zura stepped back, slowly, reluctantly. Her skin still tingled where his lips had touched hers. She could feel her inner core adjusting, blood flow increasing, sensory receptors flooding. It wasn't just attraction anymore, it was biological convergence. I shouldn't have done that, she said softly. Elias smiled. I'm glad you did. She turned toward the observation window, the endless sweep of stars beyond it. She needed distance, even if only a few steps. She needed to think, but her body was already making decisions without her consent. The scent she was releasing, undetectable to humans, was flooding the chamber, a low-frequency invitation. The kind Jirani queens hadn't emitted in generations. Elias took a step forward, then another. You keep saying you don't feel, that your people evolved past all this. But everything about your body says otherwise. You're reacting to me. You're not supposed to trigger that response, she snapped, spinning to face him. You're not supposed to be compatible, but I am. She stared at him, furious, fascinated. He took another step, close. Now, close enough to touch her again. What if this isn't a malfunction, Val'Zura? What if this is the reason your people stopped evolving, because they cut this out? She didn't move, couldn't. Her gravity field was already sinking to his presence. Her ship's AI was running hot, flagging warnings she no longer cared about. Elias leaned in. Let me prove it. Her voice trembled. Prove ... What? That you were meant to feel this, to want, to need. And then, without waiting for permission, he pressed his lips to hers again, deeper this time. Not gentle, not questioning. It was a challenge, a claim. She responded instantly. Her hands tangled in his shirt, pulling him closer. Her body arched against his. He was hot, so hot. Humans ran warmer than Jirani, but this was heat like a reactor melting down. She moaned softly, involuntarily, and instantly hated how much she liked the sound of it. They moved together like a system realigning. Her silver skin shimmered, streaked now with violet and deep blue as her pleasure sensors activated for the first time in her life. He touched her waist, her hips. She pulled his shirt off like it was holding oxygen hostage. And then she saw it. Her eyes dropped, her breath hitched. Oh, she whispered, that's significantly above Jirani standard. Elias chuckled. You say that like it's a problem. No, she said, voice husky. Not a problem. A challenge. Their clothes hit the floor in quick, clumsy motions. Hers vanished. With a voice command, he's pulled off by greedy hands. She pushed him against the diagnostic bench, but he pulled her on top instead. And when they finally came together, Jirani and human, there was a burst of energy that shorted out half the ship's lighting. Her back arched. His hands gripped her thighs. Her power surged and dipped in waves. The room literally trembled. Sensors went offline. Val'Zura screamed his name, once loud enough to echo into the corridor. Later, when it was over, they lay there, in sheets, in breath, in each other. She stared up at the ceiling, her skin still glowing faintly. You've done something to me, she murmured. Changed me. Elias chuckled softly, brushing hair from her face. Good. She rolled over to face him, eyes serious now. Elias ... This wasn't just sex. I think I've started a biological bond sequence. Jirani call it the threading. Sounds serious. It is. It means I won't want anyone else ever. My body's choosing you. He was quiet, then he nodded. I already chose you, Val, from the moment I saw you. She smiled, and for the first time since her ascension to commander, she didn't feel alone, felt claimed. And she liked it. Val'Zura didn't wake up the next morning. She emerged. Her body felt different, lighter, warmer, awake in a way it had never been. Every nerve sang with a strange harmony. Her skin still hummed with lingering energy, a soft bioluminescent glow trailing across her thighs and up her spine. It wasn't just pleasure, it was evolution. The threading had begun in full. Elias lay beside her, tangled in the sleek Jirani silk sheets, half asleep, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. Val'Zura turned to study him. Her fingers hovered above his chest, tracing the shape of his collarbone. Down the line of muscle. He was a puzzle wrapped in heat. Everything about him was illogical to soft, to open, to human. And yet, her body had rewritten centuries of Jirani programming in a single night. He was no anomaly. He was the missing algorithm. And he had no idea what he'd just done. He opened one eye. "You're staring, you should be dead." He blinked. "Well, that's romantic." She sat up, the sheets slipping down her chest. He tried to stay casual, but his gaze definitely dipped. "I mean it," she said. "No Jirani male has ever survived a full threading. The bond usually kills them. Neural collapse, adrenal failure, too much overload." Elias shrugged, smirking. "Guess I'm built different." She narrowed her eyes. "You are. Your systems adjusted in real time. You matched my output, matched my rhythm, my strength, your endurance, Her voice softened. "It shouldn't be possible." He leaned up on one elbow. "Are you saying I rocked your galaxy?" Val'Zura didn't answer, but her expression made it clear. Yes, he had. Then her personal terminal chimed. She froze. "Emergency directive. Summon 2 High Council immediately. Biological anomaly detected. Unauthorized genetic merge logged." She cursed under her breath. The damn AI must have logged her hormonal spikes. The ship knew. Which meant the Council knew. Which meant her very public, very forbidden union with a human was about to become a diplomatic crisis. Elias sat up. "Problem." She turned to him. "The High Council knows we bonded, so you don't understand. The Jirani mating process was banned centuries ago. It's considered ... dangerous, obsolete. The last recorded hybrid was declared a galactic threat. They called it a gravity breaker." Elias blinked. "Wait, you mean this isn't just about sex?" Val'Zura stood, voice flat. "You've potentially started a political rebellion with your dick." Elias, he whistled. "Always wanted to leave a legacy." She couldn't help it. She laughed. Just once. A sharp, unexpected sound. No one had ever made her laugh like that. It felt like letting go of armor she didn't know she still wore. But the moment faded fast. Her mind was racing. The Council would demand she sever the bond. They'd attempt chemical intervention. Maybe even demand Ilias's return to Earth for processing. But the worst part, she couldn't let him go. Not now. Not after feeling him inside her, around her, within her gravity field. She was tethered to him now, permanently. "You need to leave," she said suddenly. "Now, before they send retrieval teams." Elias looked at her, really looked at her. "Val, do you want me to go?" Her throat tightened, her fingers curled. Every instinct screamed yes for his safety, for her status, for the Empire. But her body whispered no. "No," she said, voice breaking. "I want to keep you close. To protect you, too." She stopped. "I don't have words for it. The Jirani language doesn't include the concept of ... love." "Then borrow ours," Elias said, standing and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Because I've got plenty to spare." She closed her eyes, let his forehead touch hers, let her hands drift over the curve of his back. She didn't care if the High Council called her a traitor. She didn't care if the universe burned around them. She'd found her, gravity, and it wore a human face. Asterisk, the Jirani dreadnought entered stealth orbit above the neutral moon of Velkar 9, cloaked in silence. Its gravity engines pulsing like the slow, tense heartbeat of a predator holding its breath. Inside, Val'Zura paced her private chamber naked, still glowing, and absolutely furious. The Council had issued a direct order: terminate the bond and surrender the human for containment and study. They hadn't even tried to sound diplomatic about it. They called Elias a genetic aberration. They called her decision an act of deviation. And they called what happened between them an unauthorized reproductive experiment. She called it something else: freedom. Elias was in the next room, seated on the edge of the diagnostic bench where this entire storm had begun. Shirtless, relaxed, a little too calm for someone who might soon be hunted by an empire. He looked up as she entered. "Well, are we fugitives yet, or just romantically inconvenient?" "Both," she said flatly. He grinned. "I can work with that." She stepped closer, grabbing the sides of his face with both hands. Her touch was firm, but her eyes betrayed the storm behind her mask. "Elias, they won't stop. You don't understand the Council. They've outlawed bonding for a reason. Jirani hybrids are stronger, faster, unpredictable. So we had a good night," he said, smirking. "Didn't know I was that talented." "You are," she said, her voice dropping. "You're not just compatible. You're triggering something in me, in us. You've restarted a gene line that's been dormant for generations. And that's bad because," she exhaled, "because our child, if we create one, will be born with the ability to manipulate matter itself, not just gravity. Everything, density, magnetism, even molecular structure. That's why they banned interspecies threading. The last child born, like that, nearly broke a planet in half during a tantrum." Elias's eyebrows raised. "So you're saying our baby could be a walking natural disaster?" She didn't smile. I'm saying the council would rather erase you and me than take that risk again. For the first time, Elias looked serious. Dead serious. What do we do? He asked quietly. Val'Zura stepped back and pulled up a holographic star. Map. Dozens of systems blinked red, one blinked green. There's a colony world, she said. Uninhabited. Atmosphere is breathable. No long-range scans. It's a dead zone. We go dark. We go now, and we never come back. Elias stood, walked to her. And your throne, your command. She paused, looked up at him. I was the most powerful being in the Jirani Empire, and now she pressed his hand to her stomach. Now I want to be the mother of something more. His hand stayed there, warm against her bare skin. No words were needed, he just nodded. The next 2 hours were chaos and silence. Val'Zura uploaded a false flight log to the dreadnought. SAI. She sent her officers to remote recon stations with falsified orders. She overrode her own security protocols and locked every gravity coil on a countdown. When they detonated, it would look like a containment breach fatal. No one would question it, and by then they'd be light years away. They left the dreadnought in a stolen scout vessel. Small, cramped, no gravity stabilizers. She didn't care. She manually recalibrated every setting to match Ilias's biological profile down to the pressure of the seats and the temperature of the oxygen. Comfortable? She asked as they left the hangar. He looked at her. You kidnapped me in luxury. She rolled her eyes, but her hand found his. Hours later, their ship landed in the shadow of a crystalline mountain range on a world with no name, no designation, and no history. It was untouched, untamed, and absolutely beautiful. The sky shimmered in hues of silver and violet. The grass beneath their feet was soft and warm. A river sang quietly in the distance. Val'Zura stepped down from the ramp and looked around. This is where it ends, she said. No more command, no more power, no more empire. Elias came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. This isn't the end, he whispered into her ear. It's the beginning. She leaned back against him. And in that moment, she didn't miss her throne. She didn't mourn her title. She had chosen something else, a future, a man, a child they hadn't yet created, but she could already feel the shift inside her. Her body was preparing. The bond was deepening. She was no longer just Val'Zura, commander of the Jirani. She was a woman, a mate, and soon she would be a mother. The days passed like dreams. The planet they chose had no name, but Elias started calling it Edenfall because it felt like something sacred that had fallen just for them. Every sunrise painted the skies with molten gold. The nights shimmered with twin moons and constellations neither of them could name, and in between was peace. Val'Zura, once the most feared figure in an empire of elemental control, now spent her mornings walking barefoot through luminous grass with dirt on her hands and Ilias's shirt wrapped around her shoulders. She never thought she'd find joy in simplicity. She also never thought she'd fall asleep wrapped around a human male who snored lightly and drooled on her collarbone. But she had, and she loved every second of it. Their bodies synced more deeply with each passing week. The threading hadn't just bonded them physically, it rewrote them at the cellular level. Her skin, once smooth and reflective like polished steel, now glowed with a soft warmth when Elias touched her. And Elias, for his part, had started developing minor gravitational feedback loops. His steps could shift dust and stone slightly, just from her aura alone. But it was the life forming between them that changed everything. The first time Val'Zura felt the movement in her abdomen, she froze stunned, not because she feared it, but because it was real. Her body, engineered for war and perfection, was now nurturing something fragile, something alive, something the galaxy would never allow to exist. She sat on a rock by the river that night, staring into the flowing water, her hand resting on her belly. She felt the tiny pulse inside her, gravitational flutter that rippled the current slightly. It had begun. Elias knelt beside her, brushing her hair behind her ear. Is it really happening? He asked softly. She nodded. It's not just a pregnancy, it's an evolution. He rested his hand over hers. Then we teach them everything, how to be strong like you and how to feel like me. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And how to laugh at bad jokes. That's the most important part. But Edenfall couldn't stay a secret forever. The council found them a ripple in space, a dark ship, no lights, no sound, but it descended from orbit like a judgment, a final warning. Val'Zura stood outside their shelter, armored again, belly round with life, eyes narrowed like twin suns. Elias stood beside her, pulse steady, no weapon in hand, just her. That was all he ever needed. The ship opened. A single emissary stepped forward, a pale, narrow figure wrapped in ceremonial armor. Return with us, he said coldly. Submit the hybrid for study. You will be remembered as a mother of correction. Val'Zura stepped forward, voice sharp and deep. I will be remembered as mother. Yes, but not for your correction. For rebirth. She raised one hand and the emissary staggered, not from attack, from pressure. The gravity on the landing field shifted, suddenly crushing, not from her, from within her. The child inside her, still forming, was already protecting them, already aware that the emissary's breath caught. He stumbled back into his ship without another word. They left without a threat, without a shot fired, because they felt it too. The presence growing inside Val'Zura wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a mistake, it was the future. Years passed. Elias built a home in the side of a crystalline cliff. Their daughter Zalea was born under the twin moons. Her first cry bending the light around her in waves. She floated before she walked. She laughed before she spoke. And when she touched a stone, bloomed into a flower. Val'Zura taught her strength. Elias taught her wonder together. They raised her in a world far from thrones and empires, but closer to the heart of what the universe had long forgotten: connection. And one day, as Elias sat on Ilias's shoulders, staring at a sky full of stars, she pointed and asked, "What's out there?" Val'Zura smiled. "Everything," she said, "but nothing more important than what's here." The galaxy would remember Val'Zura as a traitor, as a deserter, but Edenfall would remember her as something far greater: a mother, a lover, a queen of gravity who chose love instead of power and rewrote the stars with it. The end.